What better way to start an informative speech than with a statistic? 75%. 3/4 of U.S. veterans have suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, better known as PTSD, as a direct result of their military service since the terrorist attack of 9/11, according to an article on Statista.com by John Elfling. I'm sure by now most of you have heard of PTSD, but today I'd like to dig in a little deeper and tell you some more about it. As the wife of a veteran that suffers from PTSD, I have firsthand experience with how difficult it can be to cope with. I have been to counseling, and I have also done extensive research to try to better help understand my husband. There are countless aspects of PTSD that I could discuss. However, I decided that I would talk about some things that touch very close to home with me, which are some of the effects that PTSD can have on the veteran, their spouse, and their children. First, I'd like to discuss how PTSD can affect the veteran. Avoidance. I know, you're probably all thinking we all avoid things that we don't want to do. But for a veteran that's suffering from PTSD, things we take for granted, such as going to a grocery store or even out to see a movie, can be a very daunting task. The reason for this, according to DAV.org article, Learn More About PTSD Veterans, is because for some veterans, loud or crowded places can trigger them to recall incidents that they have experienced. Oftentimes, veterans suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder experience persistent and overwhelming negative emotions. This can make it difficult for them to trust people and typically find it hard to feel happy at all. Veterans that suffer from this disorder also have a tendency to have trouble sleeping, are more quick to anger, and are more likely to look to drugs or alcohol as a way to cope. Now that I've spoken about some of the effects that PTSD can have on the veteran, I'd like to talk about some effects that PTSD has on their spouse. I know, you're probably thinking, it can't be that bad, the spouse didn't even go through the same things, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Imagine living your life feeling like you're constantly walking on eggshells, never knowing what you may say or do will offend your partner. Which, based on the article PTSD in Your Family from FocusOnTheFamily.com, is probably why the majority of spouses of PTS veterans that suffer will also develop and suffer from mental health issues as well. The loneliness is a major issue for me. Not so much that my husband isn't here physically, but that he's not present the way that I need him to be. I have been to several events without my husband, and there's been even more events that I've opted out of going to because he wouldn't go with me. I've discussed some effects that PTSD has had on the veteran and their spouse. Now I'd like to talk about how PTSD can affect the children. It's hard for a child to wrap their head around why their parent lashes out or doesn't give them the attention that they need. According to the VA.gov article, when a child's parent has PTSD, children don't really understand the internal conflict that's going on with their parent. This can often lead to worry and fear. Studies have shown that children with a parent with PTSD is more likely to have behavioral issues than a child with a parent without PTSD. Because veterans that suffer from PTSD sometimes avoid crowds, their children suffer because they can't go and do things with them that they would like to do, such as things as simple as going to the bowling alley or out to see a movie. In conclusion, the purpose of my speech today was to inform you all a little about PTSD. I discussed some effects that PTSD has on the veteran, their spouse, and their children. PTSD is an invisible disorder that affects more than just the veteran themselves. So, remember to always be kind to others because you never know what they're fighting inside. Thank you.